You're listening to the Practical Wealth Show with Curtis May, putting you in the driver's seat to control your finances. Let's start the Practical Wealth Talk about alternatives to Wall Street.
All right. Hey, everybody. This is Curtis May, and we have another episode of the Practical Wealth Show, and I am honored to have a return guest, Mr. Jeffrey Reeves, who's the author of my favorite book on the banking concept called Money for Life: How to Thrive in Good Times and Bad Times. All right. And Jeffrey, say hi to my listeners out there.
Hello, listeners out there. How are you today?
We are doing good. So what we wanted to talk about, and in your book, you have, so I want to kind of get right into it. So what we're going to do today, what I want to get into, there's so much stuff that we can get into. So in my head, every time I think about it, my head's exploding because I have so many questions. But what I want to kind of start with is a mini kind of why this is important. And I want to talk about what is EUREKONOMICS and how did you come up with that? So let's start with Jeffrey. First question is, what is EUREKONOMICS? And then the second question is, how did you come up with that word?
Well, basically, EUREKONOMICS is a system, an economic system that everybody could use. It's not one that you have to be wealthy or have a huge income or have some privilege to be able to use. Anybody and everybody could use it. And it really comes from two Greek words. The first is eureka. That's a Greek word that means I found it. And excuse the mispronunciation if you're Greek, oikonomia, which translates into economy in English, and oikonomia in Greek means household management. So it combines the concept of, hey, holy moly, here's a way that I can manage my personal finance, my personal economy that is simple and clear and easy to follow.
Wow, that's simple. See, most people think economics. I remember I had it in college, and it was, all these big charts and these big ideas, and it completely went over my head. So when I talk to clients about it, they think it's or even people when they take it, they think it's some science, some big deal. It is a big deal, but it's not something outside of your little family unit. Is that what you mean?
Well, it doesn't have to be. I'm an economist at heart. I've been studying it for decades. And the reason that I came up with EUREKONOMICS is because if you listen to 10 economists, they'll take the same data and give you 10 different answers or 10 different perspectives. It's called the dismal science because it's so esoteric and so hard to understand. As you referenced, you go to college, if you take a macro and a microeconomics course, which are typically the two that you're required if you're going to be in a business environment. When you're done with those things, you'll think you know something, but when you look at reality and what happens in everyday life, none of it applies effectively.
Absolutely.
Because what applies to individuals and individual Americans in the American economy, the way things work in the United States, doesn't apply to the state government or the city government or the federal government or a major corporation or a big union or a big environmental group or the NRA. Okay, it doesn't apply to these monster organizations the same way it applies to you and me and every other everyday American.
Keep going on that thought. So how should it apply to the everyday person that they should be thinking about that they don't? Because I think it's been hijacked. I think that a lot of what is taught about money is hijacked, and people are playing by different rules than we're talking.
Well, I'll just read a quote from the back cover of the book.
Yeah.
How's that sound? Because here's the 50-page leather-bound financial plan that you receive from the well-known company with the large advertising budget is, at best, a snapshot of a fantasy. It is out of date when you receive it and out of touch with the reality of your life's daily challenges. Think about it. Do you rush to the bookshelf to pull out your neatly bound financial plan when your family faces a crisis and you need money? Uh, the 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 world since 1974. Yeah, I get this is going a little
All right.
esoteric. My apologies. 1974, the Congress passed a law called ERISA, which is the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. That created 401ks and IRAs, made them popular, um, and the financial community, and the banks and the investment companies and the insurance companies scratched their heads and said, "Hey, gee, we can get our hands on a whole lot of money from other people, from individuals, by selling this stuff." So since 1974, trillions and trillions of dollars have flowed into these companies, the insurance companies, the financial companies, the mutual fund guys. They've grown like crazy. But the average American today, when they retire, has $158,000 in their savings in the IRAs and 401ks. So, so who's benefited from the movement of all this money from your everyday budget into these products, the financial products that these guys are selling? They have. Everyday Americans have not. And if you're not in the upper middle class, at least, it's very, very difficult to benefit from those programs, even though you pour money into them over an entire career, uh, because you don't have a foundation, because you don't have a personal economy that can take care of you. When a crisis occurs, boom, there it goes. It comes out of there, goes in to deal with the crisis. That's the only money people have sometimes. So they take it out of their IRAs and 401ks. They get taxed on it. The federal government benefits, the insurance companies and so on. They charge penalties when you take it out, so they benefit. And you end up with $138,000 or whatever it is in your retirement account when you reach retirement age. So the whole model is based on moving money from individual Americans' pockets out of their paychecks and into these sometimes very, very sophisticated products that most Americans don't understand. And if you watch television, which almost everybody does, the you don't see people. The people who are spending all the money on advertising are the people who are saying, "Give me your money. I'll take care of it for you. Trust me. I'm a good guy. I'm a big company. I've got the name America in my company name, so I must be wonderful." Um, no, but they're not. They're they are big, huge, monstrous behemoths that they want your money, and if you succeed or don't succeed is not relevant to them as long as they
Right.
succeed.
Everything is. I tell people, look, everything is set up. Um, Basically, they have an overriding message of all of these companies is basically so many different words. Give your money to us, because you know what I mean. You're not smart enough. You don't have
Absolutely.
the time. You don't have the training to personally manage your own savings and investments. And that's basically what they're telling you. I used to do a presentation with another company, and I closed my eyes and I was reading back this presentation called "How Money Works," and the first couple of pages were most people don't have the time to or the training to personally manage your own investments. You know, and so they're telling you you're too stupid, you don't have time, um, and so why you need to use this fund, these mutual funds, because you get professional management, diversification, and liquidity. You know, those are like the first couple of pages. You're not smart enough. Give your money to us. And I find that that's not true. I always tell people, and this is what I love about the book. It's basically saying 2 plus 2 is 4, and you can do this.
You're absolutely correct, and it's the battle. I've been fighting it for 40 plus, almost 50 years now. And the folks that pay attention to the Buddy for Life model, that use the EUREKONOMICS principles uh, in their personal financial structures, in their personal uh, I don't know, personal finance. Those folks go coast. Those folks are like the folks from prior to 1974. My parents, probably your parents, paid off their house, didn't have a mortgage, paid off their cars, didn't have car loans, and when they retired comfortably, maybe not wealthy, but comfortably, because all they had was the maintenance of their house and the, the the few other expenses that we have on an everyday basis. And they had cash. They had money in the bank and money in savings vehicles, and whole life insurance was one of them. I think everybody, all my uncles and aunts and parents and grandparents, they all had life insurance. It all had cash value, and when they retired, they used it. Part of it for retirement, and then when they died, it took care of the surviving spouse or the surviving member. It's that was the model, and we've gotten away from it because, like you say, these financial institutions tell us we're stupid and we can't do that anymore. That's not a good way. But in fact, it works really, really well.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I hope I'm surprised. I was looking at an old article of yours, and one of the principles of Eurekonomics was, uh, invest. If you invest only from savings and never from income. You know, and I always tell people you want to save from income and invest from assets. So from your savings, which we believe the best place to store cash is permanent life insurance with a dividend paying company. Just to be clear, okay? So, not talking about universal life, and you can store cash, and then it's around the richest man in Babylon. I remember when we first met, you said, "Well, it's out of the Torah, it's out of the richest man in Babylon." You were telling me some of the genesis of these ideas, and I remember driving home, listening to it again, going, "Wow, okay." It's so when you look at the seven cures for a lean purse, it's part of all your earnings yours to keep. Pay yourself first, budget thy expenses, which is just manage your cash flow. Part of being a good house manager is you've got limited resources, so you've got money coming in and you've got money going out. And I tell people, look, if you're running a business, you can't spend more than you make, or you wouldn't stay in business very long if you didn't at least track your income and your outgo. And then step three is make your goal multiply from your savings. Look for places to employ your capital. And it's funny. I'm looking at the article. I realize where I got this from. So I always tell people about the Benjamin Graham uh, quote that an investment has two characteristics: safety of principal and a reasonable rate of return. You know, and your principal. Something where I read. I think I went to the bookstore and I saw it. It says, investment operation is something where your principal is safe and you have a reasonable opportunity to make a profit. Everything else is speculating. And so now, if you take that definition to what most people are taught to do, I don't, I don't even think they're really investing.
Yeah, that was Graham. I forget his first name. He was Warren Buffett's teacher.
Yep, yeah, Benjamin
Mentor.
Graham.
Yeah, and you look if you look at the really wealthy people, they don't do what the advertisers tell the rest of us to do.
Right,
Okay,
absolutely right.
so the people who are successful with money are not the ones that the advertisers and the promoters use to promote their products and services. They use a theoretical um, a person or program or set of principles. I've worked with financial planners and financial advisors for my entire career, and the ones who um, are most successful always had very simple, clear, straightforward approaches that individuals could apply. They didn't have to hire the financial advisor to do anything. Okay, they could do it all themselves. The financial advisor, because they're licensed people, had to get involved to a certain extent uh, because of the licensing and the compliance requirements set forth by the government. But the plan that they put in place was under the control of the individual, not the advisor.
See, I like that.
And
Yeah.
and that's the difference between that leather-bound book that you get from the big company that says, we trust me, I'll take care of you, and the difference between that and somebody who follows the principles of EUREKONOMICS. EUREKONOMICS are based on thousands of years of experience. These other things are based on a 1974 law that is flawed to a horrible, horrible extent.
Wow, I've never heard anybody say that. Like that. It's based on a 1974 law. That's really deep. I hope somebody taking notes on this. And so because that changed everything, and even the challenge with I tell you another thing that I think I'd like to get your opinion on this. The other thing that changed, when Nixon took us off the gold standard, it really kind of destroyed savings because the with inflation it kind of devalues our savings. So you can't just put it in a savings account um, because you're losing money because you're losing purchasing power.
That's true. The the gold standard is that's another true macroeconomic discussion.
Yeah,
Uh, can you survive and thrive in good times and bad, regardless of whether we're on the gold standard or not? Yes, you can. All right, but you have to follow the principles of your economics to do that. If we went back on the gold standard, would it help? It'd help a whole lot of things, but that's not where we are. So that's an economic discussion at the highest level, and it really doesn't affect everyday Americans. They don't, what do they care?
right, exactly.
You know,
I think that so Eurekonomics, let's say, is so when you say Eurekonomics, do you mean the what's the whole thing, but the money for life plan?
yeah, money for life is uh, uh, the way I initially articulated your economics principles, or the basic principles. Uh, money for life 2, or revised, or updated, or whatever, is my next project, and I hope to get that done this year sometime. And it will expand on uh, what we wrote originally, add a whole lot of other opportunities that individuals may have to uh, take control of their money and get it working for them. Because once you've established uh, a, a personal economy based on your economics, and it starts cooking, you're going to have money that you can use uh, to as we say, invest from assets to invest. But you need to know how to do that without getting locked into all these financial companies who are going to tell you you're stupid and you don't know what you're doing. So it's going to be adding a whole lot of educational, hopefully a whole lot of educational components to the Money for Life book that deal with where do you go once you've got your program up, running, and it is cooking, and your personal economy is in fact satisfying the needs of you and your family. Uh, that you have the four pillars under 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 construction at least, and then how do you proceed from there? What are the other things you can do to allow yourself to get from uh, level one to level two? I don't know how else to explain it. Just to be able to progress and get to higher and higher levels of personal financial independence.
Tell them what the four pillars are, and there's an order because they build on one another.
Sure. The first is freedom from debt to others. It's not freedom from debt, but it's freedom from debt to others. If you, in fact, have assets that have equity in them, and the best of those is whole life insurance, not your house, not your home, um, you can borrow against that asset, and you will owe yourself for all intents and purposes. Not exactly, but effectively. You will owe the money back to yourself. So you have debt, but it'll be debt to you. So it's under your control. The second is an income you don't have to work for and you can't outlive. And again, this is the premise of 401ks and IRAs, that theoretically you're going to be able to do those things, and you can. Those are not bad things in and of themselves. But if you rely on them exclusively when an emergency happens, which is the next pillar, you have to go take your money out of your retirement funds, and you can't exactly just take it. You have to liquidate typically. So the third pillar is a ready cash that is there when you need it, and then the fourth pillar is, of course, a legacy to pay forward to those you care most about, both the legacy of wisdom and wealth, so that folks know how to do what you've done to be successful, and they have a starting point better than, this is what Americans have been about forever. My kids have a better starting point than I did. My grandkids have a better starting point than my kids. And in the last 20 years, the first 17 years or so, last 20 years, that principle has eroded terribly. And my grandkids right now don't have the same um, um, starting point that my kids had. It's coming back at this particular point in time in history, but the fact of the matter is that the last 20 years in particular, but the last 40 years total since the ERISA law in '74, the yeah, I wrote a whole article about this, but it's just eroded. But for example, one of the ads I see on television now is, hey, why don't you do a refinance of your house and take out a whole bunch of money and go have a great vacation, because your house is your bank. Okay, no, it's not, because if you take out a mortgage against your house, you owe the money to a bank. You don't owe the money to yourself. And if you have the emergency come up, all of a sudden you can't pay your mortgages. The bank owns your house, not you. Okay, so I mean, it's just the erosion of the principle of individuals owning and caring for their own assets, their own money, getting out of debt to others. It's completely, it's almost completely gone. It's gone, been turned completely on its head, because now it is go borrow from other people. Uh, Take money directly out of your paycheck, put it into your retirement account, and let somebody else take control of it. It's all wrong. It's all backwards, upside down. It's not EUREKONOMICS. It's not personal financial freedom. It's not personal financial management. It's not household management. Get down to the level of you and your household, not some great symbolic idea.
Yeah, I tell people you can't control the economy at large, but you can control your personal economy, which is your production and consumption as a family, right? And I was telling this pastor one time, I believe you build a community from the bottom up, one family at a time, being a good steward of their resources.
Absolutely. It's
And yeah, I believe the money for life model is that model. I mean, I've started to ask people because I consider myself a money for life guide, and actually we're working on, so if you don't know about this, and let's say you're this is what I teach basically is to guide people to a process where they'll, let's ask yourself this: if you, how would you, in fact, I'm gonna use it. You taught me this. Like, listen, what do you call people that are free from debt to others, have an income they don't have to work for and they can't outlive, have money when they need it for good things and bad things, and have a legacy of wisdom and wealth that they teach to their children and grandchildren? And I don't know. That's it. Well, my clients,
yeah,
because that's what we teach. It was something that you told me
yeah.
when we were talking a few weeks ago.
Most of the people, when I ask them that question, would say that's a fantasy, or Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, or they would pick out a name of a gazillionaire. And the fact of the matter is, it's you. That's you. If you want that to be you, that's you.
And it's a really simple way to do that. I mean, so, and the current book, and is you can order it from Amazon. You can ask me, we can get you a copy, but it's a good read, and because it's based on principles. So even though it was written in 2006, it's really nothing changed, and definitely the principles haven't changed. The money for life, or the Eurekonomics model, which is basically states, and I want you to, in the last 4 or 5 minutes that we have here, I want to talk about that, because I think that, I tell people, look, you want to see, when things hit you, you need to have a way to process those situations that come up, right? And so, what is your operating system? Like, computers have an operating system, and so to me, the money for life model is an operating system that really says get money. And so, within that, are you if you're employed, are you maxing out on your employment? If you're in business, are you, working on your marketing to grow your revenue? And then you gotta, invent something, sell something, right? Bank it, save your money somewhere that allows you to be the bank. And all banking is, compliance people listening, is creating a pool of capital that you control, that can move at cost to meet some needs you have, borrow from your bank or use your savings as collateral, spend it, and then repay yourself using EVA, at with interest. That's the model.
It's a pretty simple model.
Yeah.
It's the problem, Curtis. The problem that every one of our prospects and clients has is that there are a million plus financial advisors and insurance representatives in America, and 0.1% of them understand these principles because their companies say this is the way you talk to people about money. And you talk to people about money in terms of, first of all, let's get money out of their paycheck with the 401k and the IRA. Then let's get money out of their pocket for their mortgages, and then let's get money out of their pocket to buy stuff and and finance it, and everything that 99.9% of the financial advisors out there talk about is taking your money, your client's money, and putting it into their pockets. And along with the trust me, I'll take care of your money for you. But the reality is that doesn't happen. The reality is that the banks, the financial companies have gotten extraordinarily wealthy. The mortgage companies have gotten extraordinarily wealthy and Americans have not. We've gotten better, but the myth of a comfortable retirement, quote unquote, uh, is it's a myth. It's not going to happen if you follow the advice of the everyday guy. Now, is there a time when a financial advisor might be extremely valuable because you've been very successful with the Money for Life model? Yeah, of course. There are times when you get to a point where you don't know enough to get into. Do you really want to get into Bitcoin and Ethereum? If you don't know anything about blockchain, um, no, you don't want to do that. Unless that's a gamble. I gamble a little bit in those markets. It's kind of fun, but it's not with money that I'm going to rely on. My expectation is I'm going to lose everything.
Right, right. So you got to have your base money secure, and then you can play with that stuff, and you could get specialists in real estate or other asset classes or gold and silver. But the thing is, you've got to lead your team. So part of that is you continue to educate yourself, and one of the things is having the confidence that, which you'll get through self education, that all right, I need to lead my wealth is my goal for people. I tell people, look, I'm your guide. I'm not going to tell you what to
Right.
do. I'm your money for life guide. I'm your. I was telling somebody, I'm your Sherpa, and they're like, well, what's that? So I had them look up the image on Google of a Sherpa. The people that help you up the Himalayas, and we're guiding you up the mountain. That's a guide, and so you still got to climb it, but we can be a little bit ahead of you. Helping you have a model that's very flexible. And one of the things that we're doing, we'll do this on another podcast, is that Jeffrey's actually working on, expansion of Money for Life. And also, we're going to work to, because there's only so many people I can see. So we're going to work to develop a platform to help other advisors that really want to be able to, move away from the product du jour, so to speak, and be able to help people with a model and know that they're doing the right thing and helping, people be what I call anti-fragile, you know, out there. And so we're working on that. Talk to that for a second. Your vision of that. 'Cause I know you're really passionate about that.
Yeah, my passion, what I really believe in, is the United States of America and the American economy, which is founded on money for life principles, on EUREKONOMICS. The small business owner, the people who work for small business owners, the folks who individual families are the backbone, even if they're working for big companies. The families of America, the business owners, they are the economy. The big guys, the huge corporations, the huge nonprofits, the huge governments, they take from our personal economies. They don't live without us giving them our money, and we have to give it to them. I need the gas and electric company because I got to do that. I got to keep the house warm in the winter, and food on the I got to be able to cook my food and so on. But I don't need a 77-inch TV. I don't need to be lured into refinancing my house so I can buy a better car. I don't need to be have money taken directly out of my paycheck and given away to somebody else to quote manage, when I can just as easily not do that, take that same amount of money and manage it myself. Because big is bad. The America. You're often my wheelhouse here. In the 1700s, the King of England and the mercantile companies of England ruled the world. They decided who would succeed and who failed. They had control of the seaways. They had control of merchandise and trade. And they tried to impose their will on this group of people in the United States of America. And that group of people said, wait, well, first of all, we were the colonies then, one of the colonies. And we said no, and the people who said no, everyone who signed the Declaration of Independence, which is hanging in front of me right now, which I read on a regular basis, every one of those people was a small business owner. Every person who signed the Constitution of the United States was a small business owner. There were no big businesses in the United States. The United States is small business. And what's happened is the federal government and the behemoths have become the King of England and the mercantile companies. And they're imposing their will on the people. And it's not good. It's bad. So we need to turn that around. We need to reduce the size and scope of governments and individuals. But in the meantime, if you want to survive, if you want to prosper, if you want to live well in good times and bad, you need to adopt the EUREKONOMICS model and the Money for Life principles, the principles that are articulated in Money for Life. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Curtis.
There you go. I like that. There's so many. Oh, we have to end because we're at 37 minutes. Because I could go on another rant on that. Because I tell I love that. So I actually that's embodied what we try to get out there as a company with Practical Wealth Solutions is really teaching you to be in control of your personal economy. And so with that, what I want to do is I want to kind of let you finish off with some final thoughts. I know that you have I want you to talk about it or tell people about where they can find more information about a program that you're really passionate about masterminding with profit pilots. And so tell them about that a little bit, if you care to.
Well, very briefly, Profit Pilots is a company that I started a few years ago, and the objective of Profit Pilots is to bring together groups of small business owners to serve each other as a board of advisors. So get together 12 business owners in companies that are similar in size and scope within a given range, and they become each other's advisory board. Because small business owners, if somebody comes in and says, "Here's a financial program that is really wonderful. I think you should make it a part of your business," they don't know whether it is or it isn't wonderful. You can do some uh, spreadsheets and some illustrations to make anything look wonderful. So they can take that idea to this other group of 10 or 12 other guys and gals and say, hey, what do you think of this? Well, some people will say, I don't know. And some people say, I heard about that company and here's what I heard bad, or I heard this good, or I had this experience. And now you have a and there's a whole process for managing that called a mastermind process, which is too much to get into. But the result is that the decisions they make are much better decisions because they're better informed. Not if you got a guy who walks in the door and says, "I'm going to sell you this widget," and you don't know anything about the company or the widget, he can make it sound great, but you shouldn't buy it until you talk to a bunch of other people who may have had the same experience. And let's say you talk to everybody who none of them had the same experience with the same widget, but they will have had experience with other companies and other widgets. And that just the depth of understanding and the depth of effective decision making is compounded thousands of times. One, if you got two people, it's one and one or four. Uh, you know, it's binary math: 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 50, 250, 65, 12. So you're 1,000 times better with 12 people than you are with one.
And that falls under I would go back to Get Money, right? So back into the Money for Life model, because you have to get better, and masterminding is one of the principles in Think and Grow Rich.
Actually, that's where it came from. But what we've done with it in the last, I've been using it for 40 years plus, 50 years, is we've formalized it. We've created systems that capture all these wonderful ideas, uh, prioritize them, evaluate them, and create an accountability model also. So it's great to do brainstorming and get a bunch of ideas, and then you leave and you go away and you never come back. Okay, so we've developed a system where if somebody presents a problem or an issue or a challenge or an opportunity to the group, and then a month later they come back to the group again and they've done nothing about it, even though you had 11 other people working their butts off for an hour and a half to help you deal with that issue or that topic. You're not going to last in the group. We're going to send you away. It's not a. You have to have accountability. You have to follow through on these things because you got other people who are, maybe you decide to buy the widget. That's fine. You come back and say, I bought the widget. This is the outcome. Everything's working well. Or I bought the widget even though you guys said not to, and now it's a piece of crap, and I got to get rid of it and get a different widget. So, but there's got to be accountability. So that's the key factor in Profit Pilots.
Okay. Where can they go to find out more information? Because these can be set up. So if you're listening to this and you think, look, I'm a business owner, I'd like to create this in my part of the country. There's a process for doing that, and you have a website for that, or where they can get more information.
Well, they can go to profitpilots.us and get a bunch of information. But to set one up, the way we're structured right now is I would have to they'd have to fly me in and we'd have to work out all the details, and I have to show them how to. Yeah, there's a whole process. Too much to explain right now, but they need to talk to me.
Right.
Okay.
So, and the way to do that is on the site.
They can get the contact information off the site and give me a call. We can have a conversation.
All right, let's do that. So, Jeffrey, listen, I want to wrap up. I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you sharing some time with us. And it's always, well, this whole chat, I can talk to him every week. All right, actually, I do. But to glean the knowledge and the wisdom for somebody like this, so I'm just honored to have him on our show. And Jeffrey, I want to thank you again. And guys, I want to thank you for listening. Please listen. Take notes and share this with your friends that want to develop the 4 pillars and develop a model that helps them thrive in good times and bad in their life. All right, so guys, we thank you for listening, and y'all have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Practical Wealth. To access the show notes and resources, go to practicalwealthshow.com. To get your questions on the show, go to practicalwealthshow.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any investment decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Practical Wealth. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.